Hello and welcome to World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live from Beijing on CGTN. Coming up on today's program, a family feud has erupted between Singapore's Prime Minister and his two siblings who accuse him of abusing his power. After losing the trust of his own family, how can Prime Minister Lee retain the trust of his people? China vows to help rebuild Afghanistan's infrastructure through the Belt and Road Initiative. Will the BRI be enough for Afghanistan to surmount instability and develop its economy? A feud between the children of Singapore's late founder Lee Kuan Yew intensified. The family dispute first became public last year on the anniversary of Mr. Lee's death, when Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's sister Lee Wei-ling accused him of exploiting their father's legacy for personal gain. This time, Wei-ling and another brother have publicly accused Prime Minister Lee of ignoring their father's will and abusing his power. The future of Lee Kuan Yew's house has become the biggest bone of contention, and this family squabble has brought international attention to Singapore's government.
Demolition or preservation? In the early hours of last Wednesday, Miss Lee and her brother, Lee Hsien Yang, released a statement saying they had lost confidence in their brother as the nation's leader. They accused the Prime Minister of being opposed to carrying out their late father's wishes, as stated in his will, that the family home at 38 Oxley Road be eventually demolished rather than becoming a monument to him. We are concerned that the system has few checks and balances to prevent the abuse of government. We feel Big Brother omnipresent. We fear the use of the organs of the state against us. Lee Hsien Loong, the Prime Minister since 2004, said in a statement on Wednesday that he was very disappointed that his siblings had publicized private family matters in a statement that has hurt our father's legacy. He denied all their allegations, including the absurd claim that he had political ambitions for one of his sons. On Monday, he apologized to the public and said he would make a statement on the charges and answer questions when Parliament sits on July 3rd.
I deeply regret that this dispute has affected Singapore's reputation and Singaporeans' confidence in the government. These allegations go beyond private and personal matters and extend to the conduct of my office and the integrity of the government.
At the heart of the family dispute is thought to be the future of the house in which their father, Lee Kuan Yew, lived for most of his life. He was the Prime Minister of Singapore when it reluctantly became independent in 1965, and is credited with steering its rapid economic and political transformation. Known to many as LKY, he was often criticized. Despite this, he is still held in huge affection by Singaporeans, who turned out in the thousands to mourn him when he died in 2015. What the Lee siblings have been wrestling over is not just about their father's house. In the context of the bigger picture, it is about Singapore and what kind of country its citizens want to belong to. The Rubicon has been crossed. Prime Minister Lee's credibility has been questioned, and Singaporeans need to know what is the truth.
So what's the word on the spat among Singapore's first family, and what's likely to be its implications politically? Let's ask our panelists. Joining us in Beijing studio, Mr. Yang Xiyu, Senior Research Fellow with the China Institute of International Studies. Welcome, sir, to our program. Also, in Sabah, Malaysia, we invited Dr. Aisam O, who is the Principal Advisor of Pacific Research Center in Malaysia. Welcome as well. I want to start by asking the two of you gentlemen, what exactly do you see is the nature of this dispute among family members? Is it about property? Is it about filial piety, namely following or not the father's will? Or is it really a power struggle? Let's go to Mr. O first.
Well, I think it's primarily the differences in opinion as to how the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's heritage, his name and his reputation should be remembered by future Singaporeans. The two younger siblings, I think they would like to so-called honor the late Mr. Lee's wishes to have the house demolished, so that because Mr. Lee had a problem with like for example, be memorialized as somebody great, and then he has this disbelief in memory such as this. Whereas I think the Singaporean government, they might want to do something else. So there are differences in opinion in this case. Yeah.
Prime Minister Lee, Mr. Yang, in fact, committed to what his father asked, which is to demolish the house.
Yeah.
And he even went public in the year 2015 about that. But
yeah.
eventually, even though he claimed that he did not involve at all at the government's decision about what to do with the house, yet the house is still there.
Oh, yeah.
So the other siblings seem to ask him, what is the father's wish?
Yeah.
And whether you really follow the father's wish. What do you think is at the most critical nature of this whole issue?
Well, I think on the surface is the disputes about the way to settle the old property. But the nature of the disputes reflects the totally different opinions of politics. And for the Prime Minister, the eldest son, his idea about the arrangement reflects his wish to prolong Lee Kuan Yew's value. But the other side...
So-called maintain the legacy.
Oh, yes.
Even by the property of a house.
Oh, yes. But his argument is there have been 7 documents reflecting Lee Kuan Yew's real intention about the old house. But unfortunately, different documents reflect a different idea of Lee Kuan Yew. So that is the key points for the disputes. And his younger sister and brother has the opposite idea. They also take the argument and say the value lies in the no personnel legacy. So demolish the house reflects the true intention of his father. So in the nature, the different political beliefs appeared between the brother and the sisters.
That's very interesting. The reason we're focusing on this family dispute, apparently, is because this family, from father now to the son, has been running this country for decades. And it seems there is a continuity of legacy from the father to the son. But the question is, Dr. O, should it be?
Well, I think, of course, the Singaporean official side would argue that the fact that both prime ministers have been Mr. Lee with Mr. Goh in between, that it's the nature of their meritocratic practices. And I think there are still some substantial differences in the governance styles between the senior Mr. Lee and the junior Mr. Lee. For example, I think during nowadays, junior Mr. Lee, he approaches issues much more responsively. For example, if there are various concerns from the people regarding their livelihoods and so on, the government will be very fast to respond to that. That is in contrast to in previous years, it's more about building the greater Singapore rather than focusing on the livelihood of the regular Singaporeans. So there are differences. The continuity, of course, lies in the fact that it's the same party which has ruled Singapore for many years.
Mr. Yang, from your observation, how much is the legacy of the father, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, been providing to now the political legitimacy and possible future legacy of the current Prime Minister Lee?
Obviously, in my observation, the current Prime Minister Lee has enjoyed greatly the legacy left by his father. Not only himself, but also in the total political system in Singapore has such characteristics. Say the traditional legacy benefits the successors in many areas, and also the dominance for the political elites dominates almost every key sectors and areas in this country, even up to date. So the current disputes actually touch on the very critical question whether or not the Singapore as a country or the society should continue the tradition, say the elites dominant and rules the society, and the elites come from the elites' successors, and the generation from the elites. So that is the key question facing Singapore society.
This is a key question because, Dr. Oh, as you may remember very well, there have been a lot of debates about the so-called democracy Singaporean style or governance Singaporean style. Some consider that as one of the greatest examples of Oriental invention. Others consider it not necessarily exactly so. What do you make of it given this apparent dispute going on inside a political family? Dr. O.
Well, Singapore, I think it's an evolving democracy. In olden days, indeed, you wouldn't even see, you wouldn't even see real contests in elections during most of Mr. Lee Sr.'s time. The opposition candidates simply wouldn't even come out to run. Nowadays, you see competition in each and every parliamentary seat. And in the round before last round of election, you see the opposition making a lot of headways and so on. I think Singaporeans are still adjusting to a Singapore without the senior Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And in the process, sometimes when you have very advanced technology, when you have very advanced communication technology, people take to the internet. I mean, as is the case with the two younger siblings of the Prime Minister. People nowadays, they like to make their case publicly. You see the similar kind of airing of family disputes in the public in places such as Hong Kong, for example, over the legacy of a late father and so on. So I'm not actually very surprised to see this happening. I see it as a sign of an evolving democracy in Singapore.
It's very interesting you talk about this generational differences, and yet, Mr. Yang, there have been others who pointed out that for Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, his generation, it was a generation of political strongmen. In Singapore, in China, for example, Mr. Deng Xiaoping, and also in some of the other countries in Asia and the Pacific region.
That is the age of a strongman.
It is indeed. And now when you see politics these days in the world, some have also mentioned this is also a generation of strongman politics. If you look at Russia, if you look at Turkey, some would say. But whether that is also true in the Asia-Pacific region, that of course is a big question mark. Dr. O earlier mentioned there have been some evolvement of governance style in Singapore, for example. What do you make of that issue?
Well, yes, I fully agree with the assessment that say there have been an evolution in Singapore style. If we talk about, you mentioned that Singaporean style of governance, but the style now it has been different from the style then, decades ago in Singapore. So that reflects the evolution in Singapore. But the key question is where to evolve towards. And the current disputes about the old house really, at least partly, reflects the different ideas and the ideologies about the evolution. Evolution, no one opposes that, and that's an inevitable trend. But how to evolve, which direction we should evolve. For example, we talk about the legacy. So
what kind of legacy
are
we
talking about? Yeah, what kind of legacy?
About?
And the legacy, even that is the same legacy, what kind of role the legacy should continue to play? Play as the role decades ago or play something new? That's a key question facing the total society of
Very
Singapore.
Interesting question over there, certainly, going beyond even Singaporean borders. Dr. Oh, your opinion about that evolvement?
Well, I think, for example, for the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, he would like to leave a legacy in the sense of his policy being continued. I mean, some of his more successful policies, such as public housing for many Singaporeans, such as Singapore's national service programs and so on. I think he would see those things as his legacy. But even then, even those things, there are Singaporeans who have different opinions. And I think the government is not blind to that. I think they see that. That's why they, from time to time, they will set up various panels to try to see how to fine-tune some of these programs. But sometimes if the fine-tunement is fast enough, then of course you will regain support. If it's not fast enough, then of course you lose support. That's the nature of democracy. Yeah.
That's the nature of governance as a whole, I guess. It's very different, one's interpretation of democracy from the others, definitely in today's world. Mr. Yang, this is only one part of the issue.
Oh, yeah.
The other part of the issue is as this apparent family dispute evolves on the international stage, we see also Singapore struggles to find its own identity, both in the region and also in the international community. It used to serve, if I remember right, as a bridge between, let's just say, East and the West, even between China and the United States. The Shangri-La Dialogue, for example, is a great demonstration of the Singapore's aspiration of becoming this bridge. But things have changed. China changed, US changed. China, US want to very much willingly talk to one another because they see the significance of it. So Singapore, economically, politically, geopolitically, where is its future identity? I think that's another big chunk of huge questions facing Singapore today.
Yeah, actually, Singapore identity itself has been in the course of evolution. At the beginning stage, they developed their identity with their very successful economic construction. And with their increasing of international status quo, their status and the identity is facing challenges. And Lee Kuan Yew made a very good contribution to strengthen the identity. But now, with the evolution of the course, the traditional identity lose their advantage, and a new advantage yet to come. So that is a challenge facing the Singapore.
Before we go, we have very briefly 30 seconds for you as well, Dr. Oh. What about that specific identity?
Well, I think Mr. Lee gave some hints during his response statement last night. He said Singapore are facing the economic challenges as well as security threats. And I think in the years and months to come, those will remain Singapore's main challenges as it tries to shape its new identity.
Yeah. The set of challenges be identified, but what about the solution? That would, in a way, help us understand better about the visions of their own identity. Dr. A. Sum-Oh and Mr. Yang Xiyu, really appreciate, gentlemen, for being with us and sharing your insights. You're watching World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live from Beijing. Still to come on our program. China vows to help rebuild Afghanistan's infrastructure through the Belt and Road Initiative. Will the BRI be enough for Afghanistan to surmount instability and develop its economy? Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live Monday to Friday on CGTN. The Belt and Road Initiative is far more than just trade and investment. Countries like Afghanistan hope the BRI will boost their economies and thus help restore peace and stability through connectivity. Earlier this month, President Xi Jinping met his Afghan counterpart at the SCO summit as both sides vow to deepen cooperation. How great is the potential for this cooperation? We're going to find out soon, but first, take a look at this.
Terrorist attack again. The Taliban stormed a police headquarters in eastern Afghanistan on Sunday. 2 suicide bombs, 5 deaths. Under all those years of conflict, similar attacks are not even newsworthy for Afghans. One of their urgent needs, reconstruction. What they have, supportive global partners. Earlier this month, President Xi Jinping met Afghan President Ashraf Ghani in Astana, Kazakhstan, promising that China will continue playing a role in supporting Afghanistan's reconstruction. One of the major tools that will boost bilateral ties, as expected by both sides, is no doubt the Belt and Road Initiative.
It creates common interests between all countries. And this is very important for Afghanistan as well. If we create common interest, it can help us to create peace in Afghanistan, because economical cooperation needs a peaceful environment.
Afghanistan is along the corridor that links Central Asia with South Asia, and the geographic location provides huge potential for the two countries to cooperate on the Belt and Road Initiative. Infrastructure in Afghanistan has collapsed under years of conflict, and China could help rebuild its railways and cooperate in mining, agriculture, and investment. Just as many call it, the win-win cooperation.
And now we are joined in our studio by Dr. Humayun Qayomi, who is the Chief Advisor to the President on Infrastructure, Human Capital and Technology in Afghanistan. Welcome to our program. Also joining us in the Beijing studio, we have Ramazan Jumazada, I hope I pronounced your name right, sir, who is the member of the parliament and also chairman of the Natural Resources and Environment with Afghanistan. Welcome.
Thank you.
Talking about Afghanistan, instability is what the people worry about. But at the same time, people also say, you know, what the media depict is only one side of Afghanistan. Actually, there is peace and stability. What is the reality, Professor Qayomi?
I think part of it is whether we want to see the glass half full or half empty.
What do you
And
think?
also, as we look at many of the issues that are part of Afghanistan, to what extent is it only Afghanistan's issues or the issues of the region, or it's part of the global war on terror, and also at the same time the opportunities that our whole region have. And specifically as we look at Belt and Road Initiative, how Afghanistan can play a very central role as part of the Belt and Road Initiative.
In order to be attractive, Afghanistan has to be stable and peaceful. How far is Afghanistan, your country, sir, from it?
The Afghan people, yes, we do believe that we are not in a good situation because, you know, every day we're going to sacrifice, you know, people, but we are hoping and we are committed that we're just going to move forward. We're going to out of this, you know, disasters. But yes, we can do believe in the economy is one of the main things, you know, that we should have a strong economy and stability. Because once we have a strong economies, that people have good jobs and everything. So we are hoping that we are moving into the right directions.
Hoping and is are two very different things. So is this a chicken and egg thing, that when you don't have stability, then you don't have investment, you don't have business opportunity, then poverty leads people to even deeper problems. And if you do not have the economy coming back, you don't really have stability, because that's the root cause of having problems and instability. What do you make of this chicken and egg thing, vicious cycle, some say?
You know, we have to look at two things, the short terms and the long terms. In the short terms, the government, in general, the parliament hold the, you know, government sections to bring, you know, confidence to the people, because the people should have confidence, and especially the investors, that they should be ready, you know, to put more investment in Afghanistan. But I do believe what you have mentioned before, if there's no stability, if there's no security, there's no investment at all. And the long term, of course, you know, once we have the stability and security, we bring some, you know, amendments, as is quite related to the parliament's amendment to the laws, which, you know, pave the way, encourage the investor, the traders to put investment in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan is unique, as you said, Professor, but on the other hand, nobody knows yet how big the Belt and Road Initiative will become and how the overall plan will be done. It really depends on so many moving factors. What do you make of all of these?
Well, I think as we look at the potential of what it could do and look at Afghanistan's unique geographic location, but not only in Afghanistan, you can consider Afghanistan part of Central Asia, but also part of South Asia, part of East Asia, as well as part of West Asia. So being a land bridge that traditionally for millennia, several millennia, were the land bridge that connected China to the Middle East and then to Europe, India to the Middle East and Europe, as well as Central Asia now via Afghanistan to warm waters. We, as part of it, we can serve a very unique role in the movement of goods, movement of energy, and movement of data. And in addition to that, if you look at the natural resources that Afghanistan has, whether it's in the energy resources and green energy, over 23,000 megawatts of hydropower, over 70,000 of wind, and as well as solar, over 200,000, and also so many mineral resources, and above all, very hardworking people. That gives us a lot of potential in terms of where it can go.
Professor Kayumi, you understand probably better than anybody else the advantages of Afghanistan when it comes to natural resources, when it comes to the talents, probably could also work the other way, because that's exactly the root causes why there are so many foreign powers over the history of Afghanistan want to have a feet there, and as a result your country suffer. So the question is, what about now? Will Belt and Road Initiative, do you think, be the hope of part of the solutions? What kind of overall comprehensive solution, Professor, are you really looking at?
I think Belt and Road could be a very a major role in the economic development of Afghanistan, because unlike some of the other events of the several hundred years or millennia, Belt and Road has been a framework of peace. Belt and Road has been a framework of how regions can develop.
So you believe what the Chinese government is saying? You believe also what the discussions are about during the Belt and Road Initiative summit earlier this time in Beijing?
Actually, I was there in the summit when President Xi made the presentation, and also the presentation that he made at Davos, and I've had the good luck of reading a lot of what has been happening. So I think the vision that has been created by China is so unique, and it could really be transformational for developing Eurasian economy in a way that has never been developed before. So, you're right, like any major initiative, it will have its bumps. It will have mid-course corrections that will be needed. It will, but I think part of it is it has been set up in such a tremendous, comprehensive way that the potential is really a lot there, and we have a lot of hope in terms of where it can go.
We do talk about the potential, but we also want to get specific in what are the projects that is, pragmatically can be established with the Belt and Road Initiative. What would that bring to both your country, Afghanistan, and those who are investing in this project? Might be from AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, might be from Asia Development Bank, might be multiple players involved. So what would bring it to them?
First, in terms of railroad, a specific project that we actually signed a memorandum of understanding with a major Chinese company last week in Astana is building as part of the 5-nation railroad, which involve China, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. This is the piece of about 800 kilometers within Afghanistan that will connect from Tajikistan border all the way to Iranian border. When that railroad is built, the Chinese goods that takes right now to Europe takes about 7 or 8 months. It will be cut down to about 10 to 12 days.
Amazing.
Secondly, it's another one from Turkmenistan border going down toward, and then to the Charbahar port, which means that all of the Central Asian countries would have a connection to the warm ports of Charbahar in Iran or Gwadar in Pakistan.
But what are the price tags for this?
Okay, let's be, yes.
Realistic here, okay.
Realistically, the first piece that I mentioned, from Tajikistan border to Iranian border, the price tag is around $1.5 billion. And a sizable amount of that one will be moving Chinese goods, Central Asian goods, and national goods off Afghanistan. In addition to moving of goods, the other part is energy, for instance. Another one of the MOUs that we signed for the western part of Afghanistan, it's a series of hydropower plants, which will produce maybe roughly about 1,500 to 2,000 megawatts of electricity. That a good part of it will be for sale to Pakistan, which Pakistan has a major deficit of about 15,000 megawatts of electricity. This will be a major boost for Pakistan and bring the two countries together.
Okay, you're painting too beautiful a picture, Professor.
Yes.
I have to question you about that, because who will be responsible for the safety and the security along the railway? Can the Afghan government be responsible for that, even though it is only Kabul, some say, that the Afghan government now could really have a say at this point?
76% of our electricity comes from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, all the way to Kabul. And some of it will go even further south than that. I think they're all working fine. Now, the other area that we also wanted to talk about was data, the movement of data. Right now, half of the world internet connectivity data is between Europe and Asia. It takes about 130 milliseconds. The paths that we, something that we signed an MOU with the MIIT of China a month and a half ago, through Wuhan corridor, when that path is completed, the data from China to Europe could be cut by 40 milliseconds. That's a savings of $3 to $4 billion for all of the areas ahead.
Who will be responsible for the safety and security of the transmission when it is in the border of Afghanistan?
Yes, well, basically very much like the current internet service that we have within the country. Do we have once in a while interruptions like any other places? But we have internet connectivity, albeit not enough, within Afghanistan, and those ones are operating.
But, Professor, whether it's true or not, to the utmost extent, it's one question. But on the other hand, there are reports about bombing, terrorist attacks in Afghanistan on a daily basis with casualties, at least in the press. And there is the issue of terrorism in Afghanistan. There is also the issue of what kind of role will Afghanistan aspire to play when it comes to security for the region. So all of this, I guess, is part of the overall economic development plan of Afghanistan. I hope your country has realized that.
Definitely. I think every one of these projects would have a security dimension, and that's how we look at those ones, not only during planning, design, and construction, but also overall, which unfortunately, not only for Afghanistan, but even in most developed countries, they have to have a security plan for their critical infrastructure. So Afghanistan has in the same way. I think a lot of, we've had very horrible attacks in our cities, but I think a lot of the war or the fighting that really comes from is a lot of the insurgencies that come from our eastern neighbor to Afghanistan and in the border provinces, not necessarily all over the country. So I think that's where the difference is. That, of course, the issue about media is when people see one particular case, a particular piece at a particular time, consciously or unconsciously, we try to generalize that one for the whole country at all times. Unfortunately, the world is becoming quite unsafe right now with the impact of so many global terrorist organizations, which are part of this illicit activity of over $1.6 trillion that involves from drug trade to movement of, to smuggling of people to all kinds of illicit activities. And that basically is something that all of us, all countries have a responsibility to be part of the solution.
Well, Mr. Zumazada, I mean, on the one hand, yes, there is economic and trade development. There is also the links, connectivities. But on the other hand, there's also geopolitics, for your country particularly so. The war, we wouldn't even go into details about why it happened, how it happened, why it happened that way. But right now, you do have certain balances to keep for your country. The role the United States play for your country, in your country, and the roles that your neighbors on different sides play, including China. And also, what kinds of country Afghanistan aspire to be. Afghanistan now is an observing country of the SCO, and also a member of some of the regional platforms as well. So what kinds of role does Afghanistan want to play? Do we know at this point?
Thank you very much. In terms of tourism, what's been discussed here, that there's no doubt at all that Afghanistan's, like many other countries, in a sacrifice of terrorism. And not just only that, but some of our neighboring countries, which is, been accused of, supporting the terrorism. That's something, that we expect from the international communities, that they should, find out that the main, center of the terrorists, which is outside the border of Afghanistan. That is somehow, in terms of, we're just going to talk about the regional cooperations. And we do believe that China is playing a very crucial role in these areas, not just only, to bringing kind of loss of enemies in Afghanistan, like what I would like to mention about the AIIB and also CPEC. And we would expect from China, playing a very, it's kind of a game changer in the region.
The world changes.
Correct.
Really fast these days.
Yes.
Leadership,
Yes.
conception, mentality, formats. Where do you think Afghanistan is? What can it do?
Afghanistan, in terms of the plans that the current government has had and where we see it can be and wants to be a country that will play a very constructive role as part of Central Asia, a connector to South Asia, and play a major role as part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and be a very contributing member to the safety, to the security and stability of our region. We feel that Afghanistan is in a place where its success and its stability is going to bring stability for the region and prosperity for the region. Unfortunately, if the global terrorist organizations have their way, it will not only have a negative impact on Afghanistan, but will have a negative impact for the region. And that's why China, as well as all of the countries in the region, has to work collectively and collaboratively so we can get rid of the menace of the global terrorism that is impacting all of us, unfortunately. If I just quickly paraphrase what President Ghani mentioned in Shanghai conference, and his quote was roughly that our people are dying and saving all of your countries. And because it's not only the Taliban issue, but Afghanistan is fighting 20 different global terrorist organizations, from ETIM to Chechens to the extremist Uzbek groups and Kazakh groups and Al-Qaeda and others. That's what makes it so important that all of the countries of the world has to look at it, because heaven forbids any success of those groups is going to be a menace for the entire world.
The goal of our program is to hear different voices and to hear different insights, opinions. And certainly today, we have got a grasp of those coming from Afghanistan. Thanks to both of you, gentlemen. Professor Mohammad Qayoumi and Mr. Ramazan Zumazada. Really appreciate it. I apologize if I don't pronounce the name beautifully, but certainly I tried.
Correct.
Great to have
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Much. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us, World Insight with Tianwei CGTN, in your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tianwei, and everyone on World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.